Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah, and today I want to cover some of the arcs that I have recently read and reviewed and tell you guys what I thought. And these, I think, are almost entirely fantasy with one romance. Let me double check myself. Yes, this is one romance and three fantasy novels for review. Two fantasy novels? Three. One of them is an anthology, so it's a little bit of a mix. There were some romance stories in it, and there were some just straight fantasy stories in it. So we'll get to that when we get to it. I'm gonna start it off with the Judas Blossom by Stephen Aaron, I think maybe how you say it, Aaron. This was really interesting to me, and there was a really big push for this one. This is one of Angry Robot's big releases for the year, I think. And this is a historical alternate historical fantasy story of the Mongol invasion of Persia, in which the Mongols are basically a dominating force in history. They have taken over every land that they have invaded. They are known as the people who never win a war, never lose a battle. They win every war they go on. And it's following a wide cast of characters, starting with a general, I believe you would say his name, Huluga. There is the 12, which is a mysterious council of women who are undermining the Mongols. There is Huluga's son, Temujin? I'm probably saying these very wrong. A new bride to Huluga, who he is mainly ignoring. Her name is Kokochin, and a man who... He's a Persian, I believe, and his town was decimated and wiped out. His name is Kayvon. Now, all of these characters are working mainly against Huluga. And you start off the novel and you're like really into the general. He is very cool. Huluga starts off as very interesting, and there is an interesting way that the author twists that. So by the end, you see the darkness, the truth of who Huluga is, the general, what he is like really, and how his quest to fulfill his grandfather, what's his name? I lost it. Genghis. I believe his grandfather was Genghis Khan. His quest to fulfill his dream is falling apart. There is civil unrest. The brothers that are ruling the Mongol forces are snipping at each other, and it's just things are unraveling for him, and you start to see him unravel. Now, I will say this is very much a setup book. If the premise of this interests you, this is going to be something you're probably going to want to pick up now, because it sets up a very interesting rest of the series, I think. I think it's going to be interesting. The fantasy is very light. This book is entirely political scheming and how these characters are getting into the positions that they are going to be in for the rest of the series. My prediction, at least, is that we're going to have major movements with some of these characters coming together. So Kokochin and Temujin, I think, are going to be caught up together, and then Kayvon and his group are going to catch up with the 12 and then catch up with Kokochin. So it's going to, I think he's going to bring all those characters against Huluga in the end. The fantasy element of this is his son, Temujin. He develops a sort of magic, which he can summon fire. Now, to do this, it's a very long and kind of arduous process. He has to meditate. He has to find his inner calm. It's kind of what you would expect from a fantasy magic system based on an Eastern idea, which is where this is coming from. But there is also hints at like a time manipulation within this. And at the very end of the book, we see another couple of characters who have this magic and how it's manifested. There is, in particular, one character who shows up in the last like 2 chapters. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do. He feels a little bit like what you would expect from someone who has such a powerful ability. He's in it for the chaos. He literally says that. But hopefully it will be used in an interesting way. So for this one, entirely set up, light on the magic, little to no romance if you're looking for that. I found it fun. It was fast-paced, but because we moved between the characters very quickly, I didn't get super attached to them, though I did enjoy their different viewpoints, and each one was very clearly different than the other. So I will continue the series. It's just this book wasn't quite the, the home run that I was hoping. It's very much going to lead into a bigger series. So we will see how it goes. The next fantasy book that I read was Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher, and I am an unashamed T. Kingfisher fan. So I will say that I have a bias. I really do enjoy her work. This is a short novella. It is told from the point of view of Toadling, who is a changeling. Now, she was the human that was stolen from our world and taken to the Fey realm, and she is raised by these sort of swamp bog fae who typically eat the children that are thrown to their swamp, but for some reason they decided they wanted to raise one and they raised her. She is sent back to our world to do a task. Now she kind of fails at that task and she pays. She thinks she has to pay for that, pay for failing, and she pays for it for a long time, and it is about how she completes the task, we'll say, and how she finds her freedom from it. Like I said, short novella, so it's a quick read. I read it in a day. I super loved it. It's not going to be a super in-depth character study sort of thing. It's a twisted fairy tale. It's a new take on the Princess Trapped in a Tower tale. So if it's something you want a quick fantasy fairy tale read, I highly recommend this. It was fun. It was a great way for my brain to recharge, and I love T. Kingfisher's humor and her style of writing, so for me, this one really worked. If you're not so much a Kingfisher fan, you may not enjoy it as much, but for me, it was fantastic. We'll do the last fantasy book, which is The Book of Witches. It's an anthology. It's edited by Jonathan Strahan. I actually really loved this. I tend to not like anthologies. I had a knockout with, what was it called? The Way Spring Arrives? I'm gonna turn that lamp off because I feel yellow. I had a knockout earlier this year with The Way Spring Arrives, and I really liked that one. That was probably the first anthology I had had in a long time that I really enjoyed. This is another one. I'm actually very impressed with this one. I didn't expect to be this impressed. The stories in this, the whole premise is witches. It's a book of witches. You get different stories of different types of witches, and they are all different. I was worried with this that it would have a sameness to the stories, but they're each very different. The stories have different times, different settings, different styles of magic, different writing and narration tones, and it's edited and laid out very well. It also does not do the thing that, Africa Risen was the last one I read for review, where it starts off very strong and at the halfway mark it goes a completely bonkers way, and the stories felt cohesive in a way I didn't enjoy. This one was great straight through. There are actually a few authors on here too that I have either read before or haven't read in a long time, or never read, that I jotted down that I really need to get back to. For example, Garth Nix. I used to read him as a young kid, and his story, which has a ridiculous title, I'll see if I can put it on the screen. It was one of my favorites. It was mystery writers like Agatha Christie and them, but they're witches and they're doing a job, but they're also very snarky and sarcastic with each other, as you would expect competing mystery writers to be, and it was great. I would read a whole book series about these ladies. There was also Andrea Stewart. I believe she wrote the Bone Shard Daughter series. I have the first one over there on the bookshelf. I haven't read it. After reading that book, or that story, I really want to read it a lot more than I did. So I will definitely be picking her up soon. There was one more. I can't remember who it was. If I can remember to find it, I will try to. But overall, fantastic collection. I really enjoyed this. If you want an anthology with great witchy stories to introduce you to a lot of authors, a lot of diverse voices, this is a great one to pick up. There was one story that's probably going to actually stick with me for a long time called, I think it was called A Nudge or The Nudge. And that takes place in like a modern day post-COVID era. And it talks about COVID and it talks about being a nurse during the COVID times. And it's dark. It did a thing I didn't expect it to do, and it's kind of I think it's gonna sit in my brain for a while, rent-free, while I decide how to feel about the main character's actions. Like, was that good? So, great collection. Do recommend that for anthology readers. The final book is Not That Duke by Eloisa James. This is the romance book, obviously. This is the, I think, third Would-Be Wallflowers book, and this is about Stella and Sylvester. This was so cute. This is exactly what you expect with Eloisa James. If you enjoy Eloisa James, you're probably going to want to pick this up, obviously, and you're going to enjoy it because it is standard Eloisa. She does some really cool things with an interesting time jump. Normally, I don't like time jumps in my romance novels. It feels like there's a gap missing, and it doesn't feel cohesive. But with this, it felt cohesive. It felt necessary to the plot. I know it ties into the events of the second book, but in this one, it actually worked really well. I liked it. It didn't jar the plot at all. It didn't make it messy. There is a singing pocket kitten. I can't get over that. That made me so happy. She carries a kitten in her pocket, and the kitten likes to sing when she sings, and it was so cute. It was so freaking cute. And there is a line that cracked me up. We all know the romance trope line of she let loose a breath she didn't know she was holding, something along those lines. She did a very funny reverse of that. She took a breath she didn't know she needed, and I know she did that on purpose. Eloisa's smart enough. I know that was on purpose, and I did get a giggle out of that. So I really liked this. If you like Eloisa, or if you just want to dive into a romance, historical romance, give this one a shot. I haven't read historical romances in a while. I've kind of been off my historical romance choo-choo train, and this one reminded me of why I actually really do love them. A great installment in that genre. But that is my reviews for my recent arcs. There will probably be another one, in a couple of weeks. I am currently working on a Beanie song, Raven song, and a few other things. So look forward to reviews for those, and I will have another just general wrap up for books that I have read recently soon. Let me know if there's any of these that you have read or you're going to read down below, and I will talk to you guys in the comments. And until I see you again, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you later. Bye!